Good morning, everybody. It's your boy D Mac. And before I start, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and for everybody that's going to tune in. If you like the content that you hear, then go ahead and smash up that like button. Share it if you want to. And if you really, really like the content, then go ahead and become a subscriber if you're not already, so you can get those notifications. So when they be like, "Hey, Mac, get ready to put on a new video," you can get that nudge. You know what I'm saying? So I want to start off today with the topic of America's harbingers that are parallel to Great Britain. What is a harbinger? A harbinger is a warning sign that comes before a great destruction. If you want a comparison, then we'll go back to the nation of Israel. There were nine harbingers before the nation of Israel fell and they went into captivity. So I want to address this issue today because today is July 2nd. And the particular thing about July 2nd is the original Independence Day was supposed to be July 2nd. That is when they actually came to the conclusion and everything. But they didn't declare it until the 4th of July. And so that is why the 4th is Independence Day. So I want to, because there's been a narrative that's been given to me throughout my whole life when I went through my education. And it said to me that these English people broke away from King George III because they were tired of no taxation without representation. And that's just like taxed only by their own representatives and not the parliament, because they didn't have any representation in the parliament. So they had a problem with that and a couple other things. And that is why they broke away and they became formed 13 colonies and sailed over to a new land. This is the story that I was told as a child. And so as we grow and we open these new channels of information, we're coming to find out that these stories are not entirely accurate. But at the same time, the point that I'm trying to make in this video is America's downfall is very reminiscent of that of Great Britain, their issues and things that are going on. And America, if they claim to have broken away from Great Britain so that they can go and be this new nation and do the things the way they want to, why is it that they mirror the same exact thing that Great Britain did to them? Because if you look at America now, it's a total mirror image of the thing that they claim to have run away from. I had done a poem a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the parts that I said in it went like this. It said, "Correct me if I'm mistaken. Didn't they leave Europe to form a new nation because they were opposed to heavy taxation without representation that parallels our current situation? Will we be willing to gather ourselves in the 13 colonies and head out and search for a new land? What group of people will we oppress for their land, which in turn would be making us the new clan?" And this is what I want to talk about today. We have this history of America that they came over here because, one, they wanted to get away from no taxation without representation. So now we look at America, and where are we in America as far as taxes? This is one of the hot button issues that can get a politician ousted. This could get him not even reelected. Whenever we talk about taxes and they talk about cutting taxes and saving taxes for the middle class and for the lower class citizens and things like that, these are the things that they say to appeal to us, to get us interested in pushing them and supporting them, because we feel like they're going to do something for us where we stand. And They use this tactic time and time again, talking about taxes, cutting taxes, but we know who really gets the big tax breaks in the United States. It's been exposed over this past year of how the rich does not pay taxes like the middle class and the lower class citizens. And so, why is it that America is not um, mindful or cognizant of what its basic founding principles were? We're getting away from this heavy taxation that's becoming a burden on the people. We're not going to pay this tax and that tax too. That's not fair. That's one of the principles that they left on. So why now in America do we parallel that same exact tax problem from our government down to us as the people? It's not lining up with the story. Or have they gotten away from their true roots and the true meaning that the people had when they came here? So let's discuss this a little bit. They were upset because they felt like they were violating the rights of them as Englishmen to not have representation and taxation. So they said, no, we're not standing for this. You're not going to treat us inhumanely, and we're not going to stand for this. So we're going to go and find us another place where we can live life the way we see fit and break away from this heavy taxation. Now, one of the things that was said about King George III by one of the great statesmen that was in our history, and he's heralded in a pretty high regard, that would be Thomas Jefferson. And this is what Thomas Jefferson said about King George. He said, he was waged cruel war against against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the presence of a distant people who never offended him, captivating them and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation hither. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep open a market where men should be bought and sold. This is a statement from Thomas Jefferson criticizing King George III, and that was from the Boston Tea Party era or whatever. Now, mind you, Thomas Jefferson himself uh, enslaved about 600 people himself. So, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? How can you sit here and make this great declaration and send it out to the nations, criticizing King George for the slave trade, but you yourself is benefiting from that exact same slave trade? That is the hypocrisy of the United States at times, especially back then, because you're a mirror image of the people you claim to be breaking away from. It's hypocritical. It's very hypocritical. And that was let's see, Thomas Jefferson, he had a spot, it was called in Monticello. Now Thomas Jefferson is the same dude, mind you, that said all men are created equal. But yet and still he had over 600 slaves to come through Monticello. You know what I'm saying? So that's that double talk and that double standard that I'm talking about. That's when I say that the eagle has both wings, the left and the right, the conservative and the liberal. Those two wings are still on the same bird. So it doesn't matter because the goal is the same. They just come in with different tactics. That's all. And so this is what Thomas Jefferson had to say in his hypocritical state about one of the reasons why they wanted to break away from Great Britain, but yet they were still carrying on the traditions and all of the customs of Great Britain over here to the new land. So the Protestants, that's where they came from. They wanted to break away from the Catholic Church. They wanted to break away from Catholicism and come over here and have the freedom to practice their Christianity the way they wanted to. And now you look at the United States, and Christianity is shunned pretty much. It's still a very large religious group. Matter of fact, the Catholic Church is the largest Christian group in the United States, which is very, very, um, that's ironic, being that they broke away from the Catholic Church to come over here and practice their own religion, but yet the Catholic Church is the largest Christian group in the United States. Once again, they're paralleling Great Britain in America. And so then we talk about the education. Education, that's the cornerstone of America. Well, we know where most of the education groups come from. And we know that America ranks 14th in the world in percentage of 25 to 34-year-olds with higher education. And we know that in Great Britain, one of the issues that they had back then was mass education was being neglected, and primarily schools suffered and they lacked funds. Does that sound very familiar to you? It sounds very familiar to me. It sounds like the inner city schools here in the United States that lack the funding, but all of the private schools and the schools with people of the means get all of the funding, all of this zoning and the way they do the different districts so that they can allocate the funds a certain way. This is what we're looking at. All of these different parallels between the United States and Great Britain, who they claim to have broken away from, and who in a couple of days they're about to celebrate the breaking away from these people that they totally emulate right now in the United States. United States is just a small Britain. You look at Great Britain's past, they colonized everywhere that they set their foot. What does the United States do? Everywhere that we go and we have a battle, we colonize that place. We leave an embassy so that we can have control over some of the things that's going on in those areas. This is the same exact template of Great Britain and what they did to South Africa, Canada, India, all of the different areas that they have colonized and still have strongholds in. So what's really being celebrated? The black people, we just celebrated Juneteenth, and we said that that is going to be our Independence Day, and we're no longer going to recognize July 4th. That's what a lot of black people are agreeing upon doing. And you have some that are still going to celebrate 4th of July. I say everybody has the right to do whatever you want. This is a free country. This is what we went and fought for, so that you can have the right to do these things and worship and acknowledge whatever you want as you see fit. This is the whole purpose and the whole principle on which we've done everything in America. But come to find out that America has become exactly like Great Britain. Everything that the 4th of July stands for, the legal separation of the 13 colonies from Great Britain, is not what it seems, because America still practices and operates in the same exact thing that Britain did. So now we're going to talk about the harbingers. What are these warning signs that are being seen that parallel Great Britain's? Well, we've discussed the education system and the lack of funding for the schools, and this is going to produce a whole lot of people who are ignorant and not going to be qualified to work on certain jobs, and not going to want to go into the workforce because they know they're going to be turned down because of lack of education and poor education in the areas where they live. And if they lived in impoverished areas, a lot of times they're going to drop out of school at an early age because they have to go out and try to find a way to survive just from day to day. We see this very much in America as well. Those two things are very much parallel with each other. We have an abundance of homeless people. We have an abundance of children that are out in the streets in all over this nation. And there's some people who have the heart to help, and we go out and we do as much as we can with our limited resources, but that's not enough. And the funding and the money that goes into frivolous things in this country, it just confounds me why money can't be set aside to take care of people who have fallen on hard times, who have come to bad points in their life, who have mental health issues that haven't been diagnosed or dealt with in their life. Why can't we do that? We spend money on so many things that are unnecessary, and it's not beneficial to our growth or our health. It's just something for entertainment or something to keep us preoccupied while we're waiting to go back to work and slave on somebody else's job. Um, we look at Britain, it has a two-party system. Does that sound familiar? This two-party system is what's keeping division in this country. How can you call yourself the United States but have a party and a system that is built to keep people divided? That's an oxymoron. And moron is the word that I prefer to use. You can keep the oxy if you want to. But either way it goes, people have been tricked into believing that you have to have this certain identify with this certain group in order to be seen as something in this country, and that's not the truth. That's by far not the truth. If anything, all those titles and labels have done has just divided us in so many different ways. This whole thing of labeling everything now is a device of the enemy that's causing division amongst us in so many different environments. Man between woman, light skin between dark skin, fat between skinny, short against tall, brother against sister, mother against daughter. It's all types of division that are coming in through these ways. And it stems from the two-party system, because it's either or. There's no in between for them. You notice if you're an independent or anything outside of Republican or Democrat in this country, you're really not going to get a fair shake. Bernie Sanders is an independent, but he had to run on the Democratic ticket because if he knew if he would have ran as an independent, he wouldn't have had the backing necessary to get him to where it actually got him to, and they still chose somebody over him. So we understand what the system is, and we see how the game is played, and we have to understand this in order for us to be able to get over in this system, because it's a dog eat dog world out here. It really is right now. And if you're not if you're not mentally and intellectually equipped to see what is taking place and be able to connect some dots or be around somebody who has that ability, then you're going to be lost on a lot that's going on, and you're going to be easily deceived by the media and the powers that be, because that is their whole entire purpose, is to keep the masses going with this narrative. And they're going to do that by any means necessary. That's why they spend millions and millions of dollars on advertising, so that they can influence you to do certain things, and they can influence all of us to desire certain things. That's the whole entire point of the system. And so I go back to what the poem said. It says, "Would we be willing to gather ourselves in the 13 colonies and head out and search for a new land? Would you?" We see a lot of people nowadays. There are certain groups of people who have made migrations back to Africa. We have some Hebrew Israelites who have actually went to Israel and have been given a plot of land, but now they're having issues because of the plot of land that was given to them was, I guess, not sufficient for their needs. And so they're going through that issue right now. I have to study on that a little bit more before I really bring it out, because I don't want to give any misinformation on it. But we do have some people who are willing to leave this country and go and search for something else in another place, and find something better for themselves. We have people within the country who are saying, well, let's put all of our black dollars together and build another Black Wall Street. Okay, that's a good concept, and that's a good idea. But the point is, I mean, or the question is, how? How are we going to get everybody to buy into this idea? And that's the problem. It's not a problem to lie to a person, but it is a problem to get a person to believe that they've been lied to. That's one of the biggest issues that we have as a people, is getting people to understand that they've been lied to, and now you have to unlearn that lie, and now you have to go and search for the truth. And it has to be something that identifies in your spirit that you can bear witness to, so that you know that it's truth and you can walk in that. So, going back to my story, what I'm talking about, the parallels between Great Britain and the United States, the harbingers, the warning signs, all of these things are causing a destruction from within. And it's just like Rome. Rome destroyed itself from the inside out. It wasn't any of its opponents that destroyed them. They destroyed themselves first. They weakened themselves, and they allowed the others to seize the moment. And so now you look at where we're going as a people. We've said that we're not going to celebrate Independence Day because that wasn't our independence in 1776. They said that our independence was in 1865. Well, I beg to differ on that as well, but that'll be another story for another time. So if we're going to choose June 19th as our day of celebration of independence, then hey, more power to you. You can do whatever you like. Um, I choose to celebrate none of these days that are paganistic in their essence, and that's just my own personal preference. So I stand biased on the whole issue of celebrating any days, because the only days that I really acknowledge is birthdays, Mother's Day, and Father's Day. That's it. Outside of that, any other day, I hold all days the same. Um, but looking into going back, I want to go back a little bit, because we talked about the church, and this is an area of which there is a lot of hypocrisy, because I was having a conversation with somebody one time, and I was explaining to them that a lot of the false prophets in the church, the way that they infiltrate is through a teaching method called hermeneutics. And I was explaining how in hermeneutics, that's just basically you um, translating the scriptures and making it plain for the people and bringing it forth and breaking it down so that they can understand it. And so, in doing that, that's where a lot of um, teachers form their own opinions and their own ideologies, and they start to implement their own ideologies instead of what they learned and what they read. And that's where um, people can easily become a false prophet. I'll talk about that a little more some other time. But in this country, there's been a big explosion of the prosperity gospel and things of that nature. And we know that in this whole entire world, you know, people can preach the word, and they can teach the word with the greatest charisma and zeal and all of that stuff. But you can always know the heart and the spirit of the man by the fruit that they bear, the man or the woman. Um, I'm very sensitive to people who come to me in a religious fashion, because there's just so much. There's so much out here nowadays, you don't know what people's angle is. And until I identify the spirit of Christ in somebody, I kind of keep a wall up against them until I do. That's just guarding my spirit and keeping my spirit straight and intact so that I can go forth and do what I got to do. But in this world, I'm seeing a lot of these harbingers. I'm seeing a lot of these things that are now we're seeing the results of it, like the failing of the infrastructure. We just had a building collapse the other day in Miami, killing a whole lot of people. We had a overpass to collapse in DC, I believe, last week, and no, thankfully nobody was killed in that. But these are failing infrastructure. We have crumbling job system because people don't want to go back to work because they are getting paid better to be on unemployment. We have mass shootings all the time. We have all of these things, all of these harbingers, all of these warning signs that are right in our face. But who's watching? Who's paying attention? And who's saying, hey, look, if we don't get this done by so and so, then this could end up being a catastrophe for us in the long run. Um, One of my godsons the other day, he was talking to Siri. You know how they ask Siri crazy questions to see what type of answer. And so he asked what was going to be the state of America in 2025 or 2030. And then Siri would go on to say something like, well, after the great destruction of so and so in 2025, so and so and so and so. And then you'd be like, wait, hold up. What great destruction in 2025? Well, I was talking to him about it and we had a brief discussion. And I was saying, if you look at what Siri does and what computers do, they take the information from what's going on right now and they'll multiply it or generate it through a system, speeding it up to see if we stay on this same path that we're going and we continue for this amount of time, this is going to be the end result based on what we're doing right now. And if we continue this steady pattern of what we're doing, this is what's going to be happening in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, based on that. So Siri's just giving us basically a rundown of what's going to happen if we continue on the path that we're going in these certain years. And there's a lot of conspiracy theorists that's going to jump onto that and they're going to read a lot into that or whatever. I just see it for what it is. If we continue on the path that we're going, and if we don't pay attention to the harbingers or the warning signs that are right before our eyes, we're going to end up in a bad position that we don't want to be in as a nation. And it's going to be very hard to come out of that because everybody around us is going to be licking their chops. Oh, America's down and out. America's weak right now. This is an opportunity for us to go in and seize a little foothold in America, just a little bit more until we gain enough to be able to go in and infiltrate properly. These are the outside mindsets and the outside forces that we have to deal with while dealing with the internal destruction that we have going on as a country. And so I'm not coming on here today to disrespect the 4th of July or anything like that. I'm coming on here to bring information to let the people know that if we continue on this path that we're going and the harbingers, we're not paying attention to these warning signs, then we're going to end up in a bad situation in a few years. You already see breakdowns in areas like Flint, Michigan. Have they even fixed the water system there yet? I believe to this day, they still have not fixed the water system in Flint, Michigan. You look in Mississippi, down where my wife is from, in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. They open the levees, and then the water from the levee floods down into the Delta area, the Delta lands. Now they have pumps down there that are supposed to pump this excess water out so that it doesn't flood the lands and it doesn't destroy crops and it doesn't cause disease and things like that. Well, these pumps have not worked in years. We've been going down there for the past 4 or 5 years, and these pumps haven't been working. First, during the Trump administration, because they had signs up in the window said Trump fixed the pumps, and they were down there, and there was like disease that was taking place because of the sitting water in these areas. Fast forward years later, they still have not fixed those pumps in these areas. So when the levee lets that water down into the delta, they still have these water problems. And if you look at the water that comes out of the faucet, it's so contaminated. We're having these breakdowns in infrastructure because we're not paying attention to the harbingers. This is America's biggest issue. This is what plagues the United States. United States have gotten so haughty, have gotten so beside themselves, have gotten a big head and feel like it's the greatest nation in the world. And this is what I hear echoed all the time. This is the greatest nation in the world. But yet and still, we're having a total breakdown internally. The whole infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the buildings themselves, school, law, everything, the criminal system, everything is breaking down because this is the the time of revelation, and that's just a great revealing. People tell me all the time, "Man, I'm scared to read Revelations." I was like, Revelations just means the time of great revealing, where Yahweh is going to reveal a lot of things, and a lot of hidden things that have been tucked away for hundreds and thousands of years are going to be revealed in this time because of the level of information that we are exposed to. This is the time of revealing. And so things are coming to light. And whenever things come to light and you find out things that you believe most of your life are not true, there's going to be resistance and there's going to be pushback. That is expected. Nobody likes to know that they've lived a lie. I know I didn't like it when it started to be revealed to me. And so I understand the pushback from most people, and I accept that. But yet and still, it has to be told, and I'm going to tell it regardless. So if we continue on this path, we don't pay attention to the fine print or the details of this country, because this is what's kept this country alive. The livestock, the farmers, all of the people that we put in a lower class and we uplift the other people. These are the backbone of the country. The workers who work the daggone 12-hour shifts in the factories, the people who go out and slave day for day in the restaurants, the people who go out on the oil rigs in jeopardy and put their life in jeopardy every day for this oil so that we can have the conveniences in life that we have. This is the backbone of America. The people that the politicians run to when it's time for election, those are the backbone of this country. These are the people that we need to be appealing to and need to support with the utmost, because if they start to break down, this country's breaking down. And we're starting to see it more and more. It's more evident now. Back in the 80s and 90s, we still had room to play around because we had so much capital and we were on our high horse. But now, fast forward, the big hits that we've taken as a nation, and then the thing that we just endured in our government, yeah, we're in a vulnerable spot and we don't have the luxury to play around anymore. And so now the breakdown is more visible. It's trickling down to the people now, and it can't be covered up anymore because we have way too much access to information. And so when we take this into consideration, that we are in the time of revealing and all of these things and truths are coming out, we have to keep our minds open. We have to keep our minds open to truth. because we don't know everything. Matter of fact, I go as far as to say I don't know anything. When people try to argue with me, I will never argue the point that I know anything. It's just that I believe something strongly, just like you believe something strongly. Because most of the stuff that we based our life on is based off of first, not firsthand, but second, third, maybe fourth hand witness at best. So we don't know, because if we knew anything, then there would be no requirement for faith. You wouldn't need faith if you knew something 100%. Our spirit bears witness to the truth, but we fleshly, internally, we don't know anything, not in our carnal intellect. And so I tell people I don't know anything. I just believe something strongly. Just like you believe the opposite, I believe what I believe. So I can't get mad at you and call you names and stuff like that just because I don't believe what you believe. That's not fair. I'm a hypocrite if I do that. And that's the way I look at people who do that to me. So, um, yeah, we have to take charge of our lives. We really do. This is the time to do it. This is the most that the voice of the people has been heard in the United States in a long time, because our country is in trouble. You see the signs, like the hacking into the pipeline down in North Carolina. People down there going around, driving around for hours, running out of gas, trying to find gas because of an outside attack. All of these different harbingers that are being evident right before our eyes. And people are so caught up in their trivial lives that they're not paying attention to the warning signs. It's just like in the days of Noah. And that's exactly what the prophecy said. He said his second coming, he said the signs are going to be this, just as it was in the days of Noah, when people were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage and doing all of the things and the desires of their heart, being wicked and evil continually. It says it's going to be around about the time. Now you look at where we're at right now. We parallel the days of Noah. We parallel in our actions the things that we participate in, the things that we practice in as a nation, parallels the days of Noah. We're in the time of the great revealing. Things are being revealed right before our eyes on a daily. Pay attention to detail so that you can be up on what's going on, and you'll know how to act accordingly as this country changes and ushers in this new world order. Um, that's all I have for today. I thank everybody who tunes in. I love each and every one of you. Don't forget to smash those like buttons if you like this content. Even if you don't like this content, I thank you for still giving me an opportunity to speak to you and bring my viewpoint to you. You can share it and hit that sub and notifications and all of that. Yeah, that's all your boy got. This is D Mac. I'm out.